Beneath 2 miles of solid ice, scientists found something that should not exist. Not a fossil, not a rock formation. Something else entirely. Something that is forcing researchers to rewrite the history of our planet. And here is the part that will shake you. Some of these discoveries were made decades ago, but the world was never told. In this video, you are going to learn 3 things that will change how you see Antarctica forever. First, the hidden landscape buried under the ice that looks almost too familiar. Second, the strange heat sources that have no easy explanation. And third, the one discovery that has quietly divided the scientific community for years. No conspiracy theories, no guesswork, just the facts, and a few very unsettling questions that scientists themselves are still asking. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Most people think of Antarctica as just ice, a frozen wasteland at the bottom of the world. Nothing there, nothing happening. That is wrong. Antarctica is roughly the size of the United States and Mexico combined. It holds about 70% of Earth's fresh water. And underneath all that ice, sometimes 2 miles deep, there is an entire continent nobody has ever walked on. Here is the first mini surprise. Antarctica was not always frozen. Millions of years ago, it was warm. It had forests. It had rivers. Ancient pollen and fossils found in the ice confirmed this. The continent we think of as permanently frozen was once green and alive. Second surprise. The ice is not just sitting there quietly. It is moving, shifting. And as it moves, it reveals things. Since the 1950s, multiple international research programs from the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom, and Australia have been drilling, scanning, and mapping what lies below. Projects like WAIS Divide, the Russian Vostok program, and NASA's ICESat missions have all uncovered pieces of a much larger puzzle. And some of those pieces are deeply strange. Now here's where things get really interesting. In 2016, satellite imaging revealed something that shocked geologists worldwide. Underneath the East Antarctic ice sheet, scientists mapped an enormous mountain range, completely hidden, completely buried. It stretches for over 1,000 miles, roughly the length of the entire European Alps. They named it the Gamburtsev Mountain Range. Here is what makes this so strange. These mountains are ancient, formed hundreds of millions of years ago, but they look almost untouched. Sharp peaks, deep valleys, a river system carved into the rock below. Scientists expected ancient mountains to be worn flat, eroded, smoothed out by time. These were not. That means the ice covered them so early and so completely that nothing, no wind, no rain, no weather ever reached them again. They have been sitting in perfect darkness, perfectly preserved for millions of years. Think about that. A mountain range the size of the Alps, never seen by human eyes, still sharp, still standing, buried under 2 miles of ice. Researchers from the British Antarctic Survey described it as finding a ghost landscape, a version of the world that existed long before humans, frozen in time like a photograph. And the deeper scientists looked, the more they found. Radar scans confirmed over 400 lakes beneath the ice. Not frozen lakes, liquid lakes. Kept liquid not by sunlight, but by the pressure of the ice above and the heat from the earth below. One of them, Lake Vostok, is the size of Lake Ontario. It has been sealed off from the outside world for an estimated 15 to 25 million years. But if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this. When Russian scientists finally drilled into Lake Vostok in 2012, after more than 2 decades of drilling, The water samples they retrieved were extraordinary. The lake had been completely isolated. No sunlight, extreme pressure, freezing cold, conditions that should make life impossible. But the samples contained DNA traces of thousands of organisms, bacteria, fungi, even multicellular life. Some of those organisms did not match anything in the known scientific record. Scientists were careful, very careful. They repeated the tests. They checked for contamination. And while the debate is still ongoing in peer-reviewed circles, the core finding has held. Life, or something very much like it, exists in a lake that has been cut off from our world for millions of years. This matters far beyond Antarctica. I will explain why in just a moment, because around the same time, something else was discovered that nobody expected. In the western part of Antarctica, deep radar imaging revealed a network of active geothermal heat sources underneath the ice. Volcanic heat, coming up from below. In some areas, this heat is melting the base of the ice from underneath, creating rivers of liquid water flowing beneath the sheet. Scientists had always known Antarctica had some volcanic activity, but the scale and spread of what they found was far larger than any previous estimate. This brings us to the most shocking discovery of all. In 2018, a joint NASA and University of Edinburgh study identified something unusual beneath the West Antarctic ice sheet. A massive geothermal hotspot, pumping out heat at roughly 150 milliwatts per square meter. That might sound small, but compared to normal geothermal activity, it is extraordinarily high. Some researchers believe there may be a mantle plume underneath, a column of superheated rock rising from deep inside the Earth, similar to the one underneath Yellowstone National Park. If that is confirmed, it changes everything about how we understand Antarctic ice loss. Right now, the world is watching Antarctic glaciers with deep concern. The West Antarctic ice sheet alone contains enough water to raise global sea levels by over 3 meters. Scientists have long debated how quickly it could collapse, but here is what the hotspot discovery adds to that equation. It is not just warming air temperatures or warming oceans driving the melt from outside. There may be a heat source working from below, from inside the Earth itself, that we did not fully account for. That means our models of ice loss could be underestimating the speed of what is coming. And there is one more layer to this. Because that same region, the West Antarctic ice sheet, sitting above active geothermal zones, also happens to be where some of the most significant unexplained radar anomalies have been found. Large geometric-looking structures deep beneath the ice. Perfectly flat surfaces in places where flat surfaces should not exist geologically. Most scientists attribute these to natural subglacial formations, ancient lake beds, sediment layers, compressed rock. But some researchers, carefully and with appropriate hedging, have noted that a small number of these anomalies are difficult to explain with current geological models alone. The scientific community remains divided. The debate, as of today, is not closed. So what does all this mean for us today? Let us start with the most immediate implication: sea levels. If the West Antarctic ice sheet collapsed, not all at once, but over decades, it would reshape coastlines around the world. Mumbai, Dhaka, London, Miami, Amsterdam, Jakarta. Cities home to hundreds of millions of people would face permanent flooding. That is not a worst-case fantasy. That is what the science says is possible if current trends continue. The geothermal discoveries make this more urgent, not less, because they suggest the ice is being attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. Warming oceans, warmer air, and now, potentially, heat from below. But there is a second implication that is less talked about. The life found in Lake Vostok and in similar subglacial lakes is changing how scientists think about where life can exist in the universe. If bacteria and complex organisms can survive for millions of years in a dark, frozen, pressurized lake with no sunlight, completely cut off from the surface, then the conditions required for life are far more flexible than we thought. Jupiter's moon Europa has a liquid ocean beneath its icy crust. So does Saturn's moon Enceladus. Scientists now believe both of these moons could potentially support microbial life. The reason they believe that? Because of what they found in Antarctica. Antarctica became a test case, a proof of concept for life in extreme environments. What we learned there directly shapes the search for life beyond Earth. Third implication, and this one is personal. We are living at a unique moment in history. More of Antarctica has been mapped and scanned in the last 15 years than in the previous century of exploration. The tools we now have, satellite radar, deep ice drilling, AI-powered imaging, are revealing a world that has been hidden for millions of years. We are the first generation of humans to actually see what is down there. And what we are seeing is telling us that Earth is more complex, more dynamic, and more interconnected than any previous model accounted for. Everything is connected. The ice, the heat below, the life within, the oceans around, the air above. Change one part, and you change all of it. Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know. Here is the detail that most videos leave out. Antarctica is protected by an international treaty, the Antarctic Treaty System, signed in 1959 and still active today. It bans military activity, resource extraction, and territorial claims. Over 50 nations have signed it, but that treaty is under quiet pressure. Rare earth minerals, the kind used in electric vehicles, smartphones, and defense technology, exist in massive quantities beneath the Antarctic ice. Multiple nations know this, and as the ice retreats, those resources are becoming more accessible. The scientific work happening in Antarctica is real. The discoveries are real, but they exist alongside a geopolitical competition that most people never hear about. Research stations are not just about research. They mark presence, they mark interest, they mark future claims. So the next time you hear about a new discovery in Antarctica, ask the question nobody asks on the surface. Who made this discovery? Who funded it? And what else were they looking for while they were down there? The ice is not just a scientific puzzle, it is a strategic one. And as it melts, whether from above, below, or both, the world underneath is going to matter in ways we are only beginning to understand. We started this video asking what scientists found beneath Antarctica's ice. The answer is not one thing. It is many things. Mountains that should not still be sharp. Lakes that should not support life. Heat that should not be that strong. And questions that should not still be unanswered, but are. If this opened your eyes, let us bring it all together quickly. Under Antarctica's ice, there is a hidden mountain range larger than the Alps, untouched for millions of years. There are over 400 liquid lakes, including Lake Vostok, which contains signs of life after 25 million years of isolation. There is a geothermal hotspot in West Antarctica that may be accelerating ice melt from below, a factor that current climate models may be underestimating. And sitting above all of this are some of the most valuable mineral deposits on Earth, quietly watched by governments that officially claim to only be there for science. These are not theories. These are documented, peer-reviewed, and actively studied findings. The world beneath the ice is real, and it is changing faster than most people know. If you want to keep understanding how the world actually works, not the version you get in a 3-minute news clip, but the full picture, then subscribe. Every week, we go deep on the stories that matter and the details that get left out. And here is your question for the comments. If scientists could fully excavate one thing from beneath Antarctica's ice with no restrictions, what do you think they would find? And what do you think they would never tell us? Drop your answer below. Some of you are going to say things that might be closer to the truth than you realize. And when you are done, watch this next video, because what is happening in the Arctic is a completely different story. And in some ways, it is even more alarming.